There's a new lens in town, and I thought I'd talk about it as compared to another lens that's very similar that I have. That's actually one of my favorite lenses. The new lens in town is a 85mm 1.4 by Samyang, the same company that makes Rokinon, which I like. Up until recently, they've been making mainly manual lenses, and they've been getting into the autofocus realm. The first few autofocuses they made were kind of clunky. They weren't really that smooth. The motors were kind of loud, but they kind of got it down on this one. This one, they finally got a decent autofocus lens, which makes this more of a professional use lens that can now be taken seriously. So I thought I'd talk about it because it's out now and people are asking about it. My favorite go-to grab and run portrait lens has always been the Zeiss Batis 85 1.8. It's a full frame lens. It's for my full frame cameras, and I like it because it's so lightweight and small. This is like for 85s, this is actually a pretty small lens, and it's lightweight, it's not very big, and it's the fastest autofocus I've ever used on any camera. It is super sharp. It's probably the sharpest lens I have. So between Sony and Zeiss, this is super sharp, super fast, small, lightweight. It's a great portrait lens, and if you were to grab and run and do something professional and you don't have time to think about what to grab, this is a good lens to consider. So I'm going to compare it with the 85 Samyang that just came out. Now I know the Samyang is 1.4, this one's 1.8, and you're going to say, well, obviously the 1.4 is better because it has more blurry background and it's newer, and newer stuff is always better, blah, 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 right? Anyway, so let's get right to the comparison pictures. And the chart, by the way, you can download in the link below. Right away, you can see the Zeiss pictures just have, I don't know, the best way to put it is they have more of a professional look to them. They're just more punchy looking. They just look clearer and punchier, and it's just more impressive to look at the Zeiss pictures. That's not to say the Samyang pictures are that bad. They just look a little more washed out, a little tiny bit less sharp, but they're still good. They're still good quality pictures. Even though the Samyang has bigger glass, the Zeiss is still noticeably a little bit sharper. But again, that's Zeiss and you're paying for twice as much. I think for most people starting out, the Samyang is just fine. The Samyang seems to have a little bit of a warmer color tone to it, whereas the Zeiss is a little bit of a cooler color tone to it. But that's the Germans for you. Even though the Samyang can go to 1.4, it's not as sharp at 1.4 as it is at 1.8. So that takes you to the same level as the Zeiss, which is 1.8. Now there's a few differences here, and it's up to you which way you want to go. The Zeiss is twice as expensive pretty much as this one, as the Samyang. It's only 1.8 versus the Samyang being 1.4. So right away, a lot of you are going to go, oh, well, definitely get the Samyang. It's half the price and it's 1.4 instead of 1.8. But, okay, here's where the buts come. There's really not anything wrong with the lens. The only thing I noticed after using it for a while is, okay, first of all, you can see it's bigger. It's bigger, it's wider, it's bulkier, and it's heavier. The Samyang is 568 grams. The Zeiss is only 453 grams. So it's lighter, it's also smaller, and the focusing is a little bit faster with the Zeiss. I mean, nothing beats the Zeiss. It's like instantaneous as far as autofocusing. That's not to say the Samyang, it's not a slacker with focusing. It focuses pretty darn quick. It's kind of impressive, and it doesn't make a lot of noise. So it's good. It's good. Professionals can definitely use it. So here's what it comes down to. This is a good lens. The Samyang, for those of you who are just starting and you want to have a good 85mm, 85 is a portrait lens, so it's mainly used for portraits. I mean, you can use it for other stuff too, but that's mainly what its use is. So if you're starting out and you want to have a nice, really good autofocus portrait lens and you don't have a lot of money, this is a good one to consider. This is actually a really, really good lens. It's heavier and bigger than the Zeiss, but it's still not really that big and heavy. So it comes down to this. If you're willing to pay almost twice as much for this, what you're getting for that is you're getting something that's smaller, lighter, faster, and sharper. I mean, a little bit. This one's still sharp, but this one is like razor sharp. The other thing that is kind of important to me, which maybe not to other people, but it is to me. Photography is a hobby. It's fun. I like it. It's enjoyable. So I want the experience. If I had a rating system of how I would rate the fun factor of using a camera or a lens, that's kind of important to me. I want to enjoy it. I want to have fun. I want to enjoy the experience. And while using these two, the Zeiss always tickles me. It makes me so happy and thrilled. Every time I use it, I like giggle a little bit because it's so instant and fast and light, and it's just so cool. This one, the Samyang, when the first thing you notice is when you look through the camera, the image is darker. It's a lot noticeably darker than when looking through the Zeiss. You're losing, it looks like you're losing pretty much a stop. Visually, it looks like you're losing a stop or two just looking through the eyepiece because you're going from 1.8 to 1.4. This thing needs more glass. The light has to go through more glass. So it's going to lose some light just for that, which, you know, you just compensate your ASA and your shutter speed and all that. But what I'm saying is, if you want to compare these literally side by side, even when you open up a little bit more, it still looks darker and not as fun to look at through the lens when you're as the Zeiss is. So I don't know, it's kind of a little thing for me is that I like to enjoy what I see when I look through the lens. And I know I'm splitting hairs here, but anyway, the Zeiss is a little bit more nimble, it has a faster response, and the minimum focus distance with the Zeiss is a little bit shorter than with the Samyang. In other words, you can focus a little bit closer, come closer to an object with the Zeiss than with this thing. Not much, but it's still noticeable. Like if you're doing a flower, you know, or something close, you get what you pay for. I mean, they're both really good. You can make really good professional quality images with both. And as far as the 1.4 versus the 1.8, I always was thrilled how blurry the background was with the Zeiss. It's a little bit more blurry of a background with the 1.4 here, but when it gets to the point of really blurry or super blurry, I'm happy with the Zeiss. I mean, I think there's a point of diminishing returns where it doesn't really matter anymore. The Samyang is weather sealed, which is really good. It's actually got 3 different chambers in there, which are separated from each other. So dust cannot go through the whole lens. If it gets into one area, it cannot get into the other areas, which is really cool. So they've gone pretty professional with this thing, and actually, you know, I like it so much, I might not even give it away. I mean, I've got to think about this. There's something about it I like. It's just, when you put it on a camera, it looks cool. I like portability. I like, you know, the smaller and lighter, the better. But there's still something really solid and cool about it. I mean, the way it looks, that looks cool. I mean, it just feels good. It just feels right, you know? I mean, Samyang did a good job. But look how small this thing is. I mean, anyway, so I don't do super technical reviews. I give you actual emotional, this is how it feels using this in the field and how I feel afterwards and would I recommend it and what I, you know, it's all about the experience, right? I mean, photography is about the experience of photography. Why do we do photography? It's because it's fun. Right? Sigma has a 85 1.4 art lens, but it weighs a ton. That thing weighs 1,130 grams. That's the most heaviest of all the 85 millimeters that are out there. The Sony G Master 85 1.4, which I guess people are going to ask about, how come I didn't compare that? It's good. It's 820 grams, which is twice the weight of the Zeiss. And I like the Zeiss much more. It's faster, sharper, lighter. It's just much more pleasant and fun to work with. So the Zeiss definitely, in my opinion, beats the Sony G Master. Even though the G Master is 1.4 and this is 1.8, I always go for the Zeiss. That's just my thing. The Samyang, again, is 568 and the Zeiss 453. So this is the lightest weight of all of them. The Sony 85 1.4 G Master is $1,800. That's expensive. It's heavier, bigger, and more expensive. The second most expensive one is this. But again, $1,200, but again, you get what you pay for, and I am really happy with this one. I'm thrilled with it. The third most expensive one is the Sigma 85 1.4 art lens, $1,100, and the least expensive one is our new friend here, the $700 Samyang 85 1.4. So for the price, you're getting autofocus. I mean, autofocus is a game changer. Anyway, so I still, if I had to choose it, it would be the Zeiss. But they're very comparable as far as quality and usability in the real world. All right, that's my thing for today. Stay tuned to Marcus Picks. I'll see you in the next video. Fun stuff coming up.